All right, y'all. What's going on? It's Combo Breaker 99 back with another one, y'all. All right, y'all. Back with my post fight take on Mackenzie Dern defeating Virna Jandiroba to win the strawweight belt. All right, y'all. So I've been hearing mixed reviews on this one, even in the comment section. I've been hearing a lot of people say that, they thought that Virna was robbed and that she did enough to win the fight. Mackenzie Dern, she didn't do enough to win here. So why is she champion, right? So with that being said, this is really my first take on the fight because I've only got a chance to watch it once. I've been kind of busy, and I usually like to watch these fight 2 or 3 times before I do a video sometimes. But on this one, I just kind of want to give my first take here because I want to record it and then go back and watch the fight and actually see if my take is the same on the second go round. Because usually when these fights are controversial, I'll come back and do like a round by round breakdown, not like a live type of round by round like I usually do, but one where I just go through each round and tell you what I seen. I think I did one for Joanna and Zhang Wei Li when everybody was saying that fight was robbery. I went through each round and just describe what I saw, my take. So I might do the same thing with this one. But yeah, my first take on this one, after seeing it once, I gotta say I thought Mackenzie Dern, she did enough to earn the belt. She looked like the fighter that was really fighting with urgency in there and just doing what she had to do to impress the judges, but also to do enough damage to get Virna Jandiroba's respect. And that wasn't very hard because Virna, in my opinion, was showing Dern a lot of respect. Dern, I thought that she was kind of controlling the pace when it came to fighting on the inside and just being first. Virna, she was kind of fighting behind Mackenzie Dern at times and just not going in there trying to execute a good game plan to break Mackenzie Dern's will or dominate Mackenzie Dern. And that's one of my keys to victory for Virna. I said, she needs to fight to win. Don't go in there and try to trade with this girl. Don't try to trade with Dern because Dern likes that. You've seen it in the past. Like you see what Dern likes to do. You see the holes in her game. So expose that. Virna, in my opinion, she has a good long jab. She has good technique when it comes to her stance. And that's what I mean by Virna striking being better than fighters like Tatiana Suarez and so on. I think that her overall mechanics, even like the way she turns punches over are nice in the way she bounces on the balls of her feet. She's not stiff like Suarez. She can move back and forth. She can move side to side, but she just doesn't use it enough. And that's where she failed in this fight. Instead of, trying to outstrike Mackenzie Dern, she was striking with Mackenzie Dern. And we already know that if Mackenzie lands the better shots, or if she lands and just connects on Virna, the judges are going to give her the fight. They're going to give her the round. So yeah, going back looking at the first round, like real quick, I'll just say, I thought that Mackenzie Dern just kind of set the pace already. She was being first, landing the harder body kicks and leg kicks. She was landing in combinations, and you could already see it getting a reaction out of Virna. Virna took some of these big shots in the first round, and right away, she was like, "Uh-oh, let me go in for a takedown." She wanted to grapple so bad already because it was like she felt Mackenzie Dern's power, or she felt like her striking wasn't as good, which, like I said, I think it is. She just needs to commit to it. So the first round, I just thought Mackenzie Dern was a lot busier, even if Virna tried to force these takedowns. Going into the second round, I think that's where Virna started to settle in a little bit more. She found her range and she was busier, so I thought she won the second round. Like I gave Virna the second round, but Dern won the first. The third, it was close. It was a close round. Like I think it just comes down to what you really favor here. But to me, I thought Dern was just landing the better shots in the first half of the round. She was doing a lot of body kicks and leg kicks and landing that hard right hand, and even that left jab was really starting to bust up Virna's right eye. And towards like the second half of the third round, Virna did get a takedown, and she had some good ground control time in, and she did land some good hammer fists. Like she would land those hammer fists because you could see Mackenzie Dern's eyes starting to swell up. But I just thought she was letting Mackenzie be too active off her back. She was eating too many shots as well. So every time she get back up, you would see the damage on Verna's face. So you'd be like, okay, I think, Dern, she's winning here. She's kind of breaking Virna down. But at this point, I could have had it 2-1 either way, but I had it 2-1 for Virna. I ain't gonna lie. I had it 2-1 for Virna up to the third round. The first time I look, fourth round though, oh, man, the fourth round. And this is what I was saying, man. Like Virna, she wasn't making those adjustments. She's seen what Dern was able to do in the last 3 rounds and what she was able to do to Dern in the last 3 rounds as far as slow her down on the ground. But she still wasn't like being effective with ground and pound. Like she's going for these takedowns, but she's still not doing enough damage to me. She's still letting Mackenzie Dern have too much space to land shots. I don't know if that's because Virna was scared to be too far engaged in there, worried about an armbar popping up. But that was my thing too. Like if you're worried about Mackenzie Dern submitting you off of her back, just keep it standing and strike a cleaner fight instead of trying to go toe to toe with her. So I think in the 4th round, again, Dern, she was just being active and being busier, on the feet, doing more damage. Then going into the 5th round, I know Virna went in for another takedown and, was trying to get that ground control time in. But here you see just Mackenzie Dern just racking up points, just hitting her with these fists, these hammer fists to the face and, just working her, just doing more damage. But every time they would be on the feet, like Virna would let Mackenzie Dern land jabs just like this, right down the pipe, not move her head, and then take the next shot coming in. There was a couple of good hard body kicks too from Dern in this fight that I was like, okay, like I see what she's doing here. She's really just trying to make her strength and presence known. But yeah, overall, man, I could have seen it 3-2 for Dern. For Dern. I mean, I got to go back and watch the fight as far as like what ground control, like what kind of effective work that Virna was doing on the ground again. Like, was I missing something there? But I just thought overall, Mackenzie Dern, she was earning it. Let me put it that way. She was doing whatever she had to do. She was leaving her mark on Virna's face. And that's why I was saying, in my live the other day is like, if I was in a fight, like in this position right here, that image that just passed, if I was the one put on my back, let's say if somebody put me on my back and they were just holding me just because they were bigger, they were just holding me. But I'm laying back on my back and I'm just constantly hitting this person in the face. I'm just hitting them, punching them, punching them, punching them in the eye, in the nose. And, I'm doing a lot of damage. This person had a mouse under their eye, busted nose, maybe lost a tooth or two. But, oh, okay, he's on top. Oh, yeah, he's beating him. He's on top. Look at it. He got him down. But when we get up, let's say if somebody comes and breaks the fight up and we both get up, who are they going to think won the fight? The guy that was on the bottom or the guy that's missing a tooth, leaking from the nose, watery eyes, can't even see because I've been beating him up just because I let him lay on me so I could land a bit more damaging shots. That's the question. That's how I see it. I'll walk away feeling much better. I say, oh, yeah, the guy was big. He laid on me. But, hey, look at, he's missing teeth. He's the one got to go see a dentist. I'm all right. We talking right now, So that's kind of how I saw it. I just thought that Mackenzie Dern's activity off of her back and even on the feet was just much more of a presence. And it was just much more significant than some of this ground control time. I like the takedowns. I like the fact that Virna was getting these takedowns with ease and she was confident in her grappling. But that next step of just beating Mackenzie Dern to the punch on the ground was not there. It was not there. And that's where I think Weili would pick up that slack. That's why I think Weili would definitely beat both of them. I think Weili would beat Virna on the feet, probably beat her up on the feet, and Weili would probably take Dern down and actually beat Dern up on the ground like that, because where these other fighters lack in activity, that's where Zhang Weili thrives. That's where she thrives. But yeah, overall, number one, I got to say it was a good fight. Definitely an entertaining strawweight title fight. Don't care what Dean Thomas says as far as it was an insignificant fight. It made sense. It was a good fight. It was entertaining. I go back and watch it, which I will do. And I'll let you know my second take. But I just think that, styles make fights, and Virna's mindset when she fights Mackenzie Dern is just different than other fighters. And that's just how it is sometimes. Like you see Virna Jandiroba, she goes in there and beats Yan Zhana, Amanda Lemos with ease, Marina Rodriguez. But Mackenzie Dern, she loses to all three of these fighters. She gets beat by them easy, And I think that just comes down to how Virna fights. Like, I think Virna has a problem with chaotic styles. Like, I think she has a problem with pressure and, presence. Pressure and presence is what Virna has a problem with. Somebody that's going to come in there and kind of bully and dictate the pace. She's not used to that. See, the other fighters were a little bit cleaner and gave her room. Like, even Amanda Lemos has power, right? But Amanda Lemos isn't really like a bully like this. So Virna has time to think and execute a takedown and get it down to the ground. But if you fighting Mackenzie Dern is striking. She's throwing haymakers, she's throwing all these punches on the feet. And if you take her down, she's working off of her back. She like a girl in the street. She'll still fight you even off of her back. Like everybody else accepted bottom position and just laid there. But Dern, she's always working. And I think that, Verna's not used to having to tame a fighter. Most other fighters already fighting that clean fight that she prefers. But when she's fighting somebody like Dern, it's hard to control for her. She's not used to that pressure. That's just what I think. I think she's not used to pressure and aggression. That's what I was going to say. Aggression. Like she's not used to that type of aggression, and it showed. It showed in this performance because once again, she showed that respect that she did in the first fight, and that's why she lost. That's why she lost. But let me know, guys, what y'all think in the comment section. Like I said, when I get a chance, I'm gonna watch it again. But I just thought that Virna didn't do enough to impress. When you're a fighter like Virna, you got to go in there and do what you got to do, man. Like you got to have the perfect game plan to beat a fighter like Mackenzie. I'm not saying like Mackenzie's like this Valentina, not in that type of way. Like we know, like the UFC wants Dern to win, and the judges want her to win, and the fans, the simps, want her to win. So all of this, all of this is riding against Virna. So it's that type of fighter that you have to go in there and dominate, and to make sure that they can't rob me. They can't rob me. But yeah, let me know what y'all think again, man. I know some people felt like she did enough to win. Like again, tell me why. I just think Dern did enough on this first take. But hit that like button and subscribe, y'all. And yeah, I'll catch y'all on the next one and be on the mashup tomorrow. On that note, Combo Breaker 99, I'm out. Subscribe. Peace.